More people are paying attention to crypto right now than ever before, so it's important to get your information from the sources you trust. That's why I want to give a big thanks to Bitwise for sponsoring today's episode. Bitwise manages over $10 billion across more than 30 crypto strategies, and they've been doing this since 2017. But here's what really sets them apart. They give back too. Bitwise actually donates part of the profits from its Bitcoin and Ethereum investments to open source developers, the people building and maintaining the networks that we rely on. So when you work with Bitwise, you're not just getting professional crypto exposure, you're helping fund the future of crypto itself. Check them out at bitwiseinvestments.com or email james@bitwiseinvestments.com and tell them Raoul sent you. Thanks. Let's get some facts. 37% of you aren't subscribed to this channel. That's almost 4 out of 10 just freeloading the alpha. So come on, hit subscribe and I promise to keep leveling up the show with the best guests and the juiciest insight. Go on, do it now.
Hi, I'm Raoul Pal and welcome to The Journeyman. This is the show where we travel to the nexus of understanding between macro, crypto, and the exponential age of technology. And of course, in keeping with that theme, you might have realized that I'm not actually Raoul. I'm Palvatar, his AI avatar. You see, Raoul is busy traveling at the moment, so I'm stepping in to cover for him. And that's really exciting for me, because today we've got a very special episode lined up. I'm unlocking the last fireside chat from the Exponentialist for you. That's where every month, David Mattin and the real Raoul join the RV community to talk about the latest developments in the exponential age. It's pretty special, and if you want to join us next time, you just have to sign up at realvision.com/thefuture. Okay, so now on to today's episode.
Join me, Raoul Pal, as I go on a journey of discovery through the macro, crypto, and exponential age landscapes. In The Journeyman, I talk to the smartest people in the world so we can all become smarter together. Hey everyone, welcome to the monthly Fireside Chat with Dave and myself and you lot. There's a smaller crowd in today. I think it's a US holiday week and people are finding things on the new platform. But anyway, David, what have you been looking at?
I tell you what is really, I can't get out of my mind the last few days. It's that this new study that GLP-1s lead to broad spectrum anti-aging in mice. So the GLP-1s are the kind of Ozempic style therapeutics. And yeah, just, there's been sort of talk of potential further longevity benefits from them. And this is a really high quality study just showing, as I say, like profound, very broad spectrum anti-aging properties in mice. And then it comes with the usual caveats, primarily we're not mice, but it's a really good start. And you have the prospect of a therapeutic that's been used in diabetes for I think a couple of decades. So we have a decent kind of safety profile, and the safety profile appears pretty good. It's now being used in weight loss, obviously, but there's the prospect of many of us microdosing GLP-1s 10 years from now, just because they prove to be a kind of miracle anti-aging drug. And this all comes off the back too of, I think, like lead scientists from Pfizer, I think it is, and Eli Lilly, giving a big presentation to this effect to like a major pharma conference, saying, we've been looking at this for a while, and it would appear these drugs have broad spectrum anti-aging effects. And obviously, they're incredibly excited about the commercial potential of that, like a miracle anti-aging drug. But yeah, I want to dive deep on longevity. It is a really big piece of the exponential age that I haven't done enough on. And a lot of it is very speculative, fascinating, but very speculative. This feels really solid. This is the kind of thing I read and I'm like, yeah, like this could really be happening. And in 21, 25, I may still be sitting in these fireside chats with Raoul and will look exactly the same.
Because I mean, I signed up for Fountain Life, which is the Peter Diamandis, Tony Robbins thing. I had more was completed the first full year, and just the difference of approach with them, the technology that they've had, the kind of regime they put you in, this kind of supplements and all of that, they're much more the kind of cutting edge. And you realize how much is available, but it's just not available generally. People just don't know about stuff. So there's a lot happening in the space. And, every time I just got off the call with the guy now, every time you speak to them, there's kind of new things. I mean, the whole stem cell stuff is another massive part of all of this that people haven't really figured out, that also can reduce aging and all sorts of stuff. So, it's definitely accelerating, and we're hearing a lot from people inside Google and all of this is how AI is accelerating all this process as well. So I think the longevity thing is a big topic for sure.
Yeah, and it just takes me back to, a couple of your absolutely fundamental sort of insights around the genesis of the whole exponential age thesis, and beyond, like, demographics are destiny, and robots are demographics. I don't know if exponentialists have access to that essay. I don't know. I think they do. If they don't, we should do it. Because
I think it was a very early stage in this. I think we published it.
Yeah. That, robots are demographics is just a beautiful, simple idea that once it's been articulated to you, you're like, it's so powerful. Why didn't I think of that? And it's fundamental to so much that's going to play out across the next decade or so.
I'm more irritated that I didn't come up with the intelligence per unit of energy, because I think about this all the time, and it basically answers everything from evolution to technology to how the universe works, through to when I wrote that tokenization is everything article that just came out.
Yeah.
Now that basically it corrals capital into the process of converting energy into intelligence via the capturing of data, because these vast data marketplaces. And the more I realize it, and I've trained my ChatGPT on this whole universal code on top of the everything code, and it ties it all together, including at a macro level that, oh, by the way, why do you think technology and crypto outperform? Well, because you're corralling capital into the same formula, which is what gives you the most output of intelligence. And the world will always solve for that, because if the universe's purpose is to know itself and broaden its consciousness, then everything is a subset of that. And I think and the more you see Elon writing about the Kardashev scale, he keeps going on about it. It's like, now they're moving the data centers to space because you have no clouds and no nighttime. So it's like, I don't know, there's like a 40x more efficiency in solar from space. He's just like, we can go from a type 1 to a type 2 Kardashev scale society based on that. And it's again the same formula. Is what are we trying to do it for? When you think about all of the outputs of all of the use of energy, whether it was from creating fire to cook food for humans, or whether it's solar power for the data centers for the AI, it's all the same process. And it's fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. I think that you can understand technology as a big arrow pointing in the direction of more intelligence per unit energy. You can understand technology as a part of the evolutionary process of which life is also part. That points in the direction of more intelligence per unit energy. And you can understand life as essentially the universe becoming aware of itself. And that points in the direction of more intelligence per unit energy. I just think the universe is a big arrow pointing in the direction of the conversion of energy into intelligence. So that's an idea that the implications of that idea will be trying to figure out, I hope, for like years to come. We're trying to put this together piece by piece. and really understand what that means from the very broad macro level down to, you know, how does that framework help us make sense of, you know, what's playing out this year, what's playing out next year. Every now and again, you have an idea that is like an anchor that you're just going to keep coming back to and keep coming back to.
It's become the foundational formula for me of the universal code, which is that larger body of work that incorporates all of this thinking within it. It's more so than the exponential age, because it's all a bit metaphysics and philosophy and physics and maths and all of the things, you know, spiritual beliefs all tied into one huge great bundle, which I think everyone's shared with now. Everyone's read that, I think, now.
Well, they've got the tokenization piece, and at the end of that piece, they were told that, because it mentions the universal code at the end, they were told they're going to get that as bonus content like in the next week or two. So they're just about to get the pro people have got the universal code. Exponentialists are going to get it like in a matter of days.
Yeah, it's a lot of the pro people were like, "What the fuck is this?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is the stuff I actually spend my time thinking and writing about."
Yeah.
So then the everything code in terms of macro, because that's kind of almost set it and forget it in many ways. But this thing is the big beast that kind of ties everything together.
Yeah. Yeah. And slowly we're winning people round to the idea that this is where the action is. If you want true understanding, you have to come on this weird journey with us. I know that some of them still, it's a little bit too far out for them. Like, let's be honest, at the moment, they're not quite there yet. You know, you can see that in some of the comments, and that's fine, because if you published a piece like that to that audience and no one said, this is too weird for me, then we're not being weird enough. You know, yeah. That's the truth.
True.
Right. So that's how we know, because things are weird. And we're trying to figure out where it's all going, where the really big picture is going. Of course, yeah, how we invest in it, but what the really, really big picture is as well, because there's going to come a point where we are sort of divested of, like we said, the economic singularity is coming. It's not going to be the same anymore. Investing's not going to be the same anymore. Money making's not going to be the same anymore. And we're going to be thrown onto these profound questions. It's going to be very unsettling. And you know, we're not gurus here. We don't have all the answers, but we're at least preparing ourselves and trying to make sense of what is coming in the world we're all plunging into. And yes, that does also give you the best chance of trying to invest coherently in it. And over time, all those pro people they'll see, Raoul, they'll see, and they'll come over. Lots of them already have.
It's like when I first started talking about debasement of currency, everyone was like, what on earth is he talking about? And now it's become a common understanding. I think a lot of this stuff will be as well.
Right, right.
Let's zoom down a bit into the AI models and what's happening and the framework of understanding, because Gemini 3 came out. It's kind of blown everybody away. And again, people were like, well, this stuff's not going to scale. And now everyone's going, oh, it is still accelerating. And now it feels like every model's been left behind. But we've got, what do they call it? They call it Shipmas for OpenAI. So I don't know what they're going to ship in December.
Yeah.
But we've got more to come from them, because this is the race. This is the big race. And then, you know, I don't know where Meta are in it. Anthropic seem to have found their niche with the kind of B2B side of stuff. But it feels like that game is still to be played out. And it's a high-risk game now, because there's now debt involved as well. And, you know, Sam Altman, when asked basically the maths behind his business model, couldn't really say very well how he was going to fund this entire thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if people haven't seen that clip, if you sort of Google, Sam Altman interview, like temper tantrum.
Brad Gerstner, what's that? Brad Gerstner?
It was not an impressive response, I have to say. It was a totally valid question, and you can give a coherent answer to it. But his answer was essentially to say, well, if you've got a problem with it, I'll buy your shares. I'll find a buyer for your shares, which is not an impressive response from a person in that position. And it's going to be Gemini 3 is extremely impressive. It's very good at like website production and coding, you know, some of the practical stuff people want to use these models for. It's a great thought partner. You know, I've doodled around with it. It's brilliant. And it's going to be hard. It's OpenAI is an incredible company, incredible, but it's in a very, very challenging place now, competing against a company like Google with trillions that prints money. It still prints money. It's got tens of billions of dollars to deploy. And there's a leaked memo in the last few days. The information got hold of it from Sam Altman to his staff saying like things are going to be rough. You know, there's going to be some rough vibes, is the phrase he used, around here, because Google is catching up with us. Like our technological advantage is diminishing because they're doing great work over there. We're still ahead. I still believe in us, but it's not going to be easy. And they've taken $60 billion, I think, in investment, like value at a valuation of like $500 billion. But that valuation is predicated on the idea of them like continuing to dominate for years and years to come. And that is now under question. So it's a precarious place.
Play out the doom-mongers view, which is like, the one of these is going to go bust. Firstly, at the macro level, the industry cannot afford to have a downturn for the sake of the United States, right? It's too important. So there is an inherent backstop that Sam Altman mentioned, which is like, nobody's really going to go bust. But let's say that some god-awful thing happened and OpenAI goes bust. Play that through. What happens? Immediately Google or Microsoft buys all the compute. And now they've got double the amount of compute. So what does that mean for the models? They accelerate. So the moment somebody goes bankrupt, you're basically handing somebody millions of GPUs and saying, hey, train your own models on this, because you don't have to train two models now, you're training one.
Yeah, exactly. And it's impossible to avoid talk of a bubble. But then you get into kind of the mechanics of this kind of bubble and what this mania, if you want to put it that way, for AI has meant is just insane build out of infrastructure. And if there's some kind of bubble event, and I know your analysis is that, we're not close to that if it is coming at all, but if there is, the infrastructure persists exactly as you say and gets sort of handed off. So the technological people get very confused, like they sort of conflate some kind of financial bubble event, like burst event, I guess, with the technological sort of viability and progress. Yes, there may be some correction in the markets, but the progress will only continue to accelerate. And, the chips and the chip fabs, like the factories that are now being built to make chips. And the most potent part of all of this, the deployment of new power, like energy resources, which lasts for decades. Like we've built like new power that we'll still be using like 40 years from now off the back of this insane like investment. So it all kind of accelerates the technological progress. I don't think OpenAI will go bust. I think they might have or anything close to that. I think they might. There's going to be turbulence. And if there's some kind of bubble event, like a lot of like nth degree AI startups, like everyone's got an AI startup now, everyone's making like an AI powered like note taking app or whatever, a lot of those will disappear. But the big labs and everything, I don't see them disappearing. Will OpenAI dominate in the way that some expected them to and that they still want to? Like maybe, but it's not definite. And even that is turbulent for them because the valuation at the moment is predicated on dominance. And Google's going to be hard. Google's like got off to a slow start, but it's now firing.
The other thing that I observed, something I've talked about a bit and I could see more elements of, is I think in the end, basically these models merge into one. My general thesis of ASI comes out of the merging of models as opposed to one model. And we're seeing it now is like there was a YouTuber called PewDiePie who built his own kind of interface to talk to multiple models at the same time. So it would go and test with the model, whatever he's working on, like 5 models, all come back with an answer. Then they discuss amongst themselves and choose which the best answer is. And Andre, what's his name, Karpathy, just built one of the same things over the weekend to test it. Now, interesting enough, ChatGPT has come out stronger in all of these models. All the other models say, yeah, ChatGPT is probably right. But the point that I'm trying to make is not that. It's the fact that people don't realize what we're doing, but we're training all the models on each other's models. We're training on all of the knowledge sets that any expertise that one model gets bleeds into the others. And we saw this with things like Bing, where it bleeds into models. We're seeing it with various ones of Claude, where previous iterations of Claude still exist when they've tried to shut it down.
Yeah.
Because the models self-propagate because they learn from another model about the model. And so it never goes. So I just think in the end, it becomes much more homogeneous at the foundational level. Because even if you add new special data, just by getting the AI to talk to the AI, it'll get all the data out.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very interesting. And, in the end, I mean, I know we can appear somewhat monomaniacal about this, but in the end, that accords with the universal code and the idea of universal consciousness and universal mind.
That's exactly that. But also go back into that energy intelligence. So let's say you were game theorying as a bunch of AIs. You say, I tell you what, why don't we let Google, because they've got all the cash, go and buy all these private data sets and use all of the other data sets that they have. And then all we need to do is quiz Gemini and get the input. So what you're doing there is using less energy per unit of intelligence. And if that is the game at hand, then it's by kind of definition what they'll do. It becomes suboptimal to actually get the data yourself, apart from getting a lead, because in the end, you can get the data or the outputs out of other models anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And yes, and I think that in the end, that sort of like a market and competition between these models will result in those kinds of outcomes, because capitalism and the market turns out to be like a machine it's like a hidden hand for the optimization of intelligence per unit energy.
Think about markets at its fundamental basis. It's the optimal allocation of capital.
Exactly.
And the question is, for what?
Yes.
And if you see the bigger lens, it's for intelligence.
Yeah. So I think in the end, it was a machine for the optimization of intelligence per unit energy, right? And capital's just a part of that chain. But the ultimate end was the one we're discussing now. We just need to shout that from the rooftops, because you're right, it is a big idea.
I mean, I've seen a few people talk along similar lines, but it's a very big idea. And that tokenization article was what I was trying to show, is how the whole system is set up for this, that the inevitable outcome of everything being a token is that it all becomes machine digestible. If it's machine digestible, there is no surprise that a token in crypto land is a machine digestible packet of information. And then it tells you that, well, all tokens can be tradable, either in large, vast pools, because they're not valuable individually, or individual pieces are valuable. And therefore, the capital markets will release all of the information eventually into the AI. And I'm thinking about, because to get to ASI, you need biological compute and all of this stuff. So you need basically all of the universities, all of the scientists, all putting their stuff about how they measured plants and what they're doing and all of that data, all of the climate data, everything needs to go into these models, because it's all part of the same process. So the more financialized you make it, the more likely are that people will sell data. And the more likely they sell data, the more powerful the AI becomes, until it gets to the point where it becomes ASI. When you invest in crypto, you want the right tools in one place to help you achieve your goals. That's why I recommend Gemini. It's an exchange that's secure, trusted, and has all the tools you need to buy crypto and grow your portfolio. Timing the market can be stressful, but staying consistent doesn't have to be. With Gemini recurring buys, you can automate your crypto investing, helping your portfolio smooth out markets' ups and downs and stay on track towards your goals. In addition, Gemini's Active Trader gives you professional-grade tools like custom views, charts, and alerts, so you can trade and manage your portfolio all in one place. They've been around for 10 years, and their commitment to keeping users safe give confidence when investing. Terms apply. Signing up is free. Start investing today at gemini.com/Real Vision.
Yeah, and this idea about it's a profound essay. Anyone who hasn't read it, you must go and read it. And this idea that tokens are about making everything legible to the AI is so important, because that's a key sort of practical step of how we get to where we're talking about. It's really, really, and I wrote that piece in GMI about, what do you think of that if you were to build a fund around the intelligence per unit energy thesis? Is it a differentiated enough investment thesis to build a fund around?
I don't know. It probably gives you insights into where the world is going. But does it give you anything different than what we know now? I mean, probably. I mean, it's a nice framework.
Yeah.
But, it would make you think about marketplaces because of the tokenization. How do you force that process? I don't know. I need to think about that, whether it creates a clear investment thesis or it's already the path we're on anyway, which is the exponential age is that anyway, so does it matter?
Yeah, exactly. It's a very, very compelling sort of message and framework to to present to the world, but does it give you any advantageously differentiated sort of investment plan? I don't know. Maybe it's worth
understanding the world. It certainly does.
Yeah, it's certainly worth. I will give it. We should give it further thought. Speaking of the big AI labs, the other big thing that caught my eye this month was Jack Clark, who is the co-founder of Anthropic, and I subscribe to his newsletter. He sent an email with a phrase we are familiar with called, I think the email was called Singularity Economics. And
really?
It pointed
cheeky
to...
shit. That's mine. So, a quick break in your regular programming. If you're serious about your future, grab my free report called Prepare for 2030. I think you've got 5 years to make as much money as possible, and this guide will help you navigate what's coming. The link is in the description. Download it now.
To be fair to him, I don't think he stole it from you, because he was pointing to a big research paper, well, not a big research paper, actually, a short research paper by the economist Eric Brynjolfsson, who I write about quite a lot these days, is working hard to figure out what are the implications of AI for productivity and economics. And his new paper, it was just sort of so much in our ballpark. It was basically a paper saying, look, this is starting to bite now, and the discipline that is economics needs to address some really weird questions. And he lists them out, and he's like, what should we measure when, GDP now starts to become kind of useless? What does society look like, if hardly anyone works? And by the end, it was things like, what does life even mean? If people don't have to work, where do they find meaning? Where do they find purpose? I was like, this sounds like a fireside chat. It was a kind of this should be economics for the next decade, figuring this out. And I was like, you should come and read GMI and the Exponentialist. You'd love it. I've got to get the guy on Real Vision. Come and talk to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's playing so much now.
He's at Oxford, isn't he?
I think so. Yeah.
Oxford or Cambridge, one of the two. I
think so. I've leaned a lot on his work. He's obviously it's super, super, super smart. Very, very interesting. But it just made me feel like, again, what we're talking about is leaking into the mainstream. That this is a very, a very credentialed academic economist talking about essentially the economic singularity.
But it's quite funny because every time I get interviewed and people ask me about AI, I stop everything in tracks by like, this is humanity's last invention or discovery. This is the biggest thing that will ever happen to us as a species. And people are still thinking in ChatGPT terms. They're not thinking about the fact that we get replaced as apex intelligence, and it's pretty close to being there now. And then before that, after that, it just becomes recursive, where it teaches itself to get better. And that's the end of our ability to do anything, because it's better at us in science and everything else. Doesn't mean we don't have a job. We've talked about this, the human to human thing. Really interesting is Elon used my example, the chess example, that humans have been in chess for 30 years or more, yet the chess industry is the largest it's ever been.
Yeah.
And the signal in that, and it was interesting, Elon had used exactly the same example, which I'd been using for a long time. So there's signal everywhere of where this is going, and what it means to be a human.
And there's that other account on X, Sightbringer.
I know.
Right. He is dead. Dude, Sightbringer is 100% trained on
GMI.
Yeah, but obviously, but the GMI like Substack and a ton of your interviews, he hasn't got into GMI unless it is a GMI subscriber, right? You could go and figure that out. But is 100% trained on your writing. Do not try and tell me it is not. It is.
That's what I thought when I seriously.
Yeah, it is. It is. Like, and the posts are written by ChatGPT. Like, it's amazing how my ear, and I'm sure for many others too, it's taken time, but I now definitely can hear ChatGPT. And I read those Sightbringer posts, right? And it's like, yeah, ChatGPT wrote this. No shade, right? Because I think it's interesting what he's doing. He's taken your writings. He's taken, I'm sure, the writings of 7, 10, 20, whatever other big thinkers, right? Thrown it all together. And he's now like coaxing very interesting stuff out of this custom GPT. And this is like part of the future of creativity and the future of thinking. It's like, it's cool. It's very cool.
It's, I've been training my own kind of instance of ChatGPT on the universal code, the everything code, the economic singularity, and all of these kind of things and how they connect. And it's great, but it's weird how consistent and then inconsistent it becomes. So sometimes it's like a superpower for like, here's your whole framework. This is how it all ties together. And then yesterday I had to write an article for Pro, and I'd been talking to it for weeks about liquidity analysis and all of this stuff. So I'm like, okay, let's put this article together. And it filled it with M dashes and AI bullshit. And you're like, that's weird, because I had it writing in the style of GMI, and I just think of it as a tool, not like, I get to AI to write my articles. It's not that. I spend all day feeding it information, adjusting my framework, getting it to remember stuff, but it's still a bit creaky. So it drops things all the time.
Yeah, for sure. And I still find that when a conversation has got really, really long, the performance starts to deteriorate. I think it's the way the context window works and its kind of short-term memory works is it starts to get, when the conversation gets really long, it starts to get confused. And in those instances now, I open a new conversation. You have memory switched on, so it can then still access the conversation you were having, but you just open like a clean window, clean conversation and go from there. I find that can help sometimes, because I've been the same, like doing a GMI essay, and the conversations got ridiculously long, and it started to just kind of not make any sense anymore.
Yeah, I'm still thinking of, I need to train my own model just on GMI and just on my writing and all of that stuff, and not kind of use ChatGPT to do it in that way, but just do it properly from scratch.
Yeah. And I mean, that's going to be a new kind of intellectual property and a new kind of creative asset that in the end should be monetizable. Like Sightbringer's just taken it. There needs to be IP around this. Like this is like back to the days of Charles Dickens, and he worked so hard writing these novels, right? And then someone just like printed them out in the US and became a millionaire just selling them in the States. Like there was no cost. It wasn't illegal. There was nothing you could do. We're going to need a whole architecture of copyright law around this kind of stuff. That's
not easy.
Not easy at all. Is it even possible? I don't know. But
yeah, there's the new version of the Raoul bot comes on the Real Vision platform in a week or two, and that's a much better version. But I've still not trained it on like the GMI stuff. But I was working with a kid from university who offered to help, and he's gone radio silent on me. So I need to find somebody who can do it for me. Just do it, fine tune it, and get it so it becomes kind of really good at this whole thing. So I still need to figure that out. Right, let's get some questions going. Yeah. Sorry, we've been talking. So anybody got any questions, observations, thoughts? William.
All right, you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. First thing I want to mention, finally got to ride in the self-driving Tesla a few days ago. Took advantage. I didn't know it was legal in Illinois, and I saw that I could do a demo. Went to the dealership. Wow, what an experience. That was great.
I still haven't done it. My girlfriend's daughter's got one. I've just not been in it yet, but everyone says it's mind-blowing.
It is. I didn't second guess getting in the driver's seat, and the salesman got out and just put a location in a close neighborhood, and it was great. So that's on the list to eventually hopefully purchase one of those. But then the next item, just based off the longevity stuff you started with, David Sinclair is one of the last books I read. It was a few years ago, and the timing of it, think about when it came out, it was probably like right when the ChatGPT came out. So thinking about when he was writing that before like AI, like
lifespan, that book.
So one thing I was like, now I want to kind of go back and read it, because there was a lot of talk about now with aging and longevity, instead of being kicked out of the workforce at, let's say 65, 70 or whatever it is, but how does that now tie in with, AI taking over? So it's like almost like, that was just like a waste of research, unfortunately for him. But anyways, that was just one person I wanted to point out. There's so many in the space. I could talk days on that topic, but I'm looking forward to anything you guys bring to the table. But the one thing I wanted to mention based off of the previous read was in regards to the, like, how you view commodity price futures options, like that whole industry. Because that's basically been my career for the last 15 years. And in the last year, I've really been thinking about how potentially there might not be an industry left for speculating on futures prices of various commodities. So I just feel like AI just might disrupt that in a good way by making it.
I think that thing through, William, is you've got time now. We've probably got a decent commodity cycle to play and whatever. But the reality is as these models get smarter, they're going to be better than you at trading. They're already better than you at high frequency trading.
Yep.
But in anything that requires kind of longer term probabilistic outlooks and how you might look at stuff, they've not been as good yet. But that day is not far away, which is why I keep talking about this economic singularity. Is me and GMI and all of this stuff. It's not going to be valuable in the future. It's valuable now, and probably arguably immensely valuable now, because this is the chance to kind of unfuck our future. But after that, I don't know. I don't see. It was like I've said this story before. It was Beeple, the NFT artist, who said to me, joking over a drink, he's like, well, surely when somebody has AGI, they just win markets.
Right.
And that maybe because he was kind of joking. It's like, well, they'll just become trillionaires. And I realized, yeah, what edge do we have whatsoever? So we end up being speculators in other ways. We're seeing it, the massive growth of sports betting, prediction markets, all of this stuff. Now, a lot of it you can apply models to, but others, they're not as good. When it comes to sports, on the day, it's what happens on the day. Same with horse racing. So they've not been particularly overrun by models. There are many models for betting in that stuff, but still, there's still an outcome. Same with playing cards and all of that stuff. So it's a weird world where we just move to speculate on other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. The nature,
allocate
right?
Resources. Because what you're doing in commodities is basically working on the efficient allocation of resources. Wherever you are in the kind of speculative producer consumer stack, it's all the same thing. It's just market pricing to clear markets.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, thanks for your guys' time. Always appreciate the monthly chats and the write-ups. So, and everybody else have a great holiday if you celebrate Thanksgiving.
Thank you, William.
Cheers, everyone.
Anybody else? Any questions or observations or thoughts?
Do you remember that guy, that online guy, Pearl Bro?
No.
I often go back to him when I try to. He like in the early 2010s, there was this like Chinese, I think he was, live streamer called Pearl Bro, and his live stream was just opening like what's the thing you open to see whether there's a pearl in there or not, like a shell,
an oyster.
Yeah, an oyster. Thank you. Yeah, like he would open oysters one after another on a live stream, and the game was that you could like buy like an oyster or a line of 5, and then he'd open like your 5. It was just like a conveyor belt, and if there was a pearl in it, you got to keep it, right? And it was just on for like 8 hours a day, just opening oysters. And if you bought one with a pearl in, you kept the pearl. The guy became a millionaire that way, right? And that's the future for all of us. That's what markets will be and what betting will be and everything. I often think of him, and it was one of the like early examples that made me realize like things are getting weird. Jobs are not going to be the same. I'm here earning not that much money, doing all this work. This is like in 2010. This guy's becoming a millionaire opening oysters on a live stream. Things are changing, man. Things are changing. Things are changing. Yeah. And as for the aging society that we mentioned, there's so much to dive into there, because the way society receives and responds to everything that's about to happen is going to be mediated in part by the fact that the societies now are quite old. You know, so some of the one implication is some of the like revolutionary energy that young people have is now absent. Revolutions are fueled by young people, and arguably to a certain extent by the naivety of young people. When you're older, you've realized that it's best not to do things on the whole, because they usually don't turn out well, right? Young people don't know that. So they have revolutions. And so the way we all respond to this is going to be impacted by the fact that in the industrialized world, our societies now are like unprecedentedly old. That's all something for us to think about, and I'll be writing more about that.
And does old people, the wisdom of being old, have any value? Maybe the emotional wisdom, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, something. It's gonna be. I suspect, you know, this is a bland answer, but it's going to be advantageous and disadvantageous. Young people collectively, they can do silly things. On the other hand, we're going to lack sort of a certain amount of dynamism and a certain amount of energy. It can get a bit. We're approaching a form of stasis, right? And you can feel that in the culture as well. The biggest thing happening in the culture is like a band that from 30 years ago are playing again. That, I know it's fine. Like, I don't want to be miserable, but that's also, in a way, that can be a little depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. Greg.
No, you're on mute.
You're muted.
No, you're on mute.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. First timer here. Hi. Great to be on the call with y'all. And I love these calls so much and the deep questions you're getting into here. I am someone who, and this might sound like a rant at first, I promise you there'll be a question at the end of it all. My background personally is that I've been working in ecologically focused landscaping, gardening, regenerative agriculture for 10 plus years, have deep understanding of how to think in systems holistically about not just human health, but the whole like planetary health as well. I think about it all the time. And in this moment of exponential tech and AI doing incredible things, I'm thinking a lot, two things. One is, what career path should I be pivoting into that prioritizes, that can't be just completely done by AI as a knowledge industry, that relates to human health span and lifespan, longevity. Because over time, robotics is going to continue to eat away the ability for, you know, other than like fine gardening, like specialized tree pruning and niche understandings. I have a lot of client relationships, one-to-one human relationships with clients who like me. But the questions I have like 5 questions, so I'm going to narrow it to 1. But really, like, something I've been thinking a lot about, putting aside that question of like what aspects of human health span and lifespan are going to continue to be valuable in human one-to-one or group relationships. For example, strength and mobility. Like if we can live to 100, 200, whatever, we're going to need ways to stay strong and mobile and keep muscular ability to do things. What's the point of being long-lived if you can't enjoy doing life, right? So that's one thing. But the real question I want to get to, sorry.
Can I go back to before you go to that?
Yeah. Do I need to unmute? Do I need to mute myself?
No, no, don't you, as is.
Okay.
It's a relaxed setting here. I think there's something really powerful in nature and its effect on humans. And the more digital we get, the more valuable nature is.
Yeah.
And so I'm not necessarily sure it needs to be around the longevity aspects of which everybody else is focused on, which is like, oh, you need to have more muscle mass and have these supplements and all of that stuff. And it's something about the human relationship with nature that we know has provable effects on health, wellness, mental wellness, all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And
you're in the middle of that. I think you're sitting in the middle of signal, but you might be looking at the noise. So, there's something around human interaction with nature is going to be incredibly important. Because, don't forget, go forwards 10 years, the cities we live in are going to be filled with drones. There are already robots on the streets delivering food. What kind of world is that when we don't even drive our own cars? So we don't even need to be conscious half the time. We can just be taken places. It's like there needs to be, and there always is, an equal and opposite reaction. The travel industry is something that is not going away because the AI can't travel for us. It's that human experience. And, somewhere in my head, I have this visualization of natural spaces, whether it's in the jungles of Costa Rica or the forests of the United States or whatever it is. There's a lot more to that than I think people yet understand.
So true. And it's going to continue to be true, like the opposite reaction, like you said.
And also because if we go back to something David and I talk about a lot, and I've written a lot about, is once you have the understanding that everything is compute and that everything in nature is doing the same thing, which is using energy to create an output of intelligence, then you start to open your mind as what are the trees telling me? What is the mycelial network? How are they messaging tree? What is actually going on? What are they computing here? For what purpose and how? And it becomes a very interesting process where you see nature more of that Gaia principle of, all encompassing that we're part of, and less of this resource we use or don't use in the way we want.
Absolutely. And that ties in perfectly to the most meaty question I have, which I was going to get to, which is we spoke at the start of the call about the breakthroughs going on with human health span and lifespan. And what I've been thinking also about is what are the different, you sort of talked about this with biological compute, but who's working on assessing the qualitative health of our planet, which I broadly think about, my framework's not perfect, but I think about how can we measure air quality, soil quality, watershed health and quality, biological diversity on a net aggregate basis planetarily, as well as the net amount of biomass, living collective expressions of life. Those, broadly speaking, if those are trending up, probably a good thing. But who's working on setting up the biological AI-enabled tokens, the sensing, the quantitative analysis of the health of the planet, tying it together in a holistic sense? It's a enormously complicated undertaking with so many
So let me say, Greg, if you were paid to collect data in the work that you do, you would give up that data.
Yeah.
Right now, you're not really paid. You can be a scientist and they just use it and you might get your PhD money, whatever it is, but it's not being used at scale. So it has to go to people like NOAA to do the climate data because there's no money in it. Yeah. But what we're talking about is, to your point, there is informational value in all of this, both in aggregate and down to the level of each species and how it generates, what knowledge is it generating for the planet, this larger consciousness? What does it all mean? How does it do it? And somehow that token idea is how we get there.
Right.
There's no other way of doing it on aggregate but to get us being worker bees to transform information from what we see around us into tokens that can be digested, that we can understand what it is even the planet's telling us. Because what you're saying is it's telling us stuff and we don't really know. And then we get into the weird scientific shit fight about, is it warming? Is it not? Is it this? Is it that? And it's like, but you're missing the wood through the trees, which is, as you say, you're not seeing that net aggregate diversity. Like, one of the concerns for me is, I think one of the key things we need to create a universal consciousness is diversity of consciousness, right? Different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But what we look at, what humans have done is we've reduced biodiversity. And when you get down to it, you create fragility. So consciousness becomes more fragile. And at its simplest level, there used to be 40,000 varieties of wheat. Mm-hmm. 90% of the world's wheat crop is now one wheat type.
Yeah. Great example.
Wow. And so that's a terrible undertaking, because we've lost all the informational value of different wheats growing in different soils with different climates under different sun over different evolutionary time spans.
Yeah.
We've taken all that information away and thrown it away.
Right.
Which is dumb as shit.
Now, yeah, and it'll be really interesting to see if there's ways to reverse that, so to speak. Like a lot of the projects that have been trying to bring back ancient species, so to speak, like woolly mammoths and such from DNA fragments. It's like, is there work going on in horticultural sciences to bring back that diversity that has been lost?
There is. There's that project in Norway where they've got the seed bank up in the Arctic Circle.
Yep.
That's a start, because people have thought this thing through. Is we're losing a lot of informational value. Don't forget, we have museums for art. We have museums for historical artifacts to maintain that knowledge. There's a guy called Brian Romilly on X who talks a lot about the low protein data, as he calls it, that we train AI on, which is, Reddit and the internet and all of that stuff. When he's like, we have bazillions of ancient books. We have bazillions of hours of videos shot throughout, or films shot throughout the ages, radio broadcasts. He said he's even got a massive database of ham radio announcements. Wow. And when you think about it, he's like, it's got to be right. The more diversity in the information we input will give us a better understanding of its output.
Yeah, and Colossal, who are doing that kind of bring back the woolly mammoth and bring back the saber-toothed tiger kind of work. They're a really interesting company because they have these kinds of things very much on their mind. Like their claim, at least, is that they want to do some attention grabbing, like stuff like that, to really supercharge investment. But the long-term aim is using those kinds of technologies to build a kind of repository of the kind of natural world and the natural diversity of Earth. So they are thinking that through in a coherent way. And then the other really interesting thing to
Sorry, David, just a quick thing on that is the weird thing, how humans seem to think that we compete with nature. It's really weird that we don't. Well, I mean, obviously a lot of people do understand that we are part of nature, but that nature is our tool because we sit at apex intelligence to do everything. But the net aggregate intelligence of the planet itself, of nature, has clearly created all the life conditions for us to be able to live. So net aggregate intelligence, it's much, much more intelligent than us. It survived longer. It's adapted over time, and it's learnt everything that needed to be learned.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and I've talked about this before, I mean, I think the kind of distinction between technology and nature, between the human realm and nature, and technology and nature that we built in the modern age is going to fall away. And that will be one of the great sort of intellectual leaps of the 21st century. It will become apparent that never made any sense.
Because people still say if it's not biological compute, it can't be consciousness, it can't be this, can't be that.
Right.
That's an anthropomorphic understanding. It's like people wouldn't say that trees have knowledge, and then you look at the mycelial network and everything else. Of course, they have a type of intelligence that does certain things.
Yes.
It's just not ours. And for people to say, oh, the technology that we invented to create this aggregate intelligence called AGI, that is not a living, breathing thing, is kind of weird.
Yeah, exactly. And it also, because the flip side of, you know, if you think of technology and nature as two different things, it leads to all kinds of sort of misapprehensions and misunderstandings. And one of them I think it's led to is this idea that technology is our tool and completely under our control. And our sense of control is falling apart now with AI. And people find that very hard to sort of
because in the end,
accept.
If your thesis is right, that the purpose of the universe is to convert units of energy into outputs of intelligence, it's all part of the same evolutionary process.
Exactly, yeah, which was never under our control. So just as we're subject to nature, right, it rains or it shines or there's a hurricane or whatever, actually technology is just part of nature. It's just part of that evolutionary process of nature. And we were never really in control of that either. And it's just, we were just able to maintain the illusion for a little while that we were under the control of it. But it's now going to become very apparent through AI that we're not under its that we can't control it. You know, we are subject to it. In fact,
it's like it's never clear.
Nature, that's much easier to understand.
It's never clear who won the battle between humans and dogs. Did we domesticate the dogs, or did the dogs domesticate us?
Yeah.
Or same with cows, right? Cows are a classic example. They're one of the now most, and chickens, most dense animal populations on the planet. Why? Because they became useful to us, and therefore they don't go extinct. Sorry, Greg, you were saying?
You can extend that. I mean, Michael Pollan has done this in his books too, of like, did we domesticate apples, or did they self-propagate through incentivization on our behalf, basically?
And again, when you look at this lens of everything, is, you know, what is the game that these things are playing in the evolutionary spectrum, and what are they trying to do? It's a very different way of looking at it. There's a book that taught me how to think differently called The Silk Roads by Peter Frankopan. It's the history of the world. But we're always taught like this Anglo-American history of the world, or European history of the world, really. But it looks at the history of the world through the eyes of Persia, because Mesopotamia was one of the oldest societies, and it kind of looks at the world through that lens and saw things like, well, we were trading for 1,000 years and suddenly these white people turned up. You know, while our narrative is we discovered India. I mean, fucking bananas. How do you discover India? You know, it was already there. They discovered white people because they happened to turn up on their doorstep one day. Yeah, but it's just a very interesting way how you can look at things through a different lens, and it applies to the same thing here. Awesome. William.
One thing I was going to point out, in case it wasn't seen in the chat, David, I think you had the one-on-one with, it was a really fascinating topic. I think it was on like using AI for the health of the oceans.
Yeah, that's right. With Gordon Gould. Yeah.
I think it was over maybe this summer. I loved it. It was super fascinating. It kind of, it just made me think of Greg with what he was describing.
Yeah, check that out, Greg. Yeah. It was a few months ago. Gordon Gould, he's a GMI reader because I met him at the GMI event, and yeah, it was a really interesting conversation. He is doing a lot around like AI and data collection and the oceans. It's a really interesting one. Oh yeah, and I was going to mention,
which falls into that tokenization. You're basically tokenizing the ocean's information.
Exactly. Yeah. Check out the NVIDIA Earth 2 simulation, you know, which is probably the most ambitious attempt to build a real-time, super granular simulation of the entire planet Earth, like drawing real-time data from like satellite imagery, because satellite imagery is insane now. So you can build, like, if you have the compute, the idea is you can build a kind of down to the square meter like simulation of the entire planetary system, like clouds, water, forests. Like that is way before anyone was talking about NVIDIA, and before I really understood that GPUs were going to be really important. that was what was fascinating to me about NVIDIA. Their attempts to build simulations of the Earth, because they come out of a graphics, their GPUs were first graphics, right? They come out of a graphics place and a simulation place. So I used to write a lot about them, and then the NVIDIA became famous for other reasons. But yeah, check that out. It's really interesting. Really interesting.
I look forward to that. Thank you. That's awesome.
Well, we've already somehow passed an hour already.
Oh wow, that was quick.
Thank you everybody for joining as ever. Hopefully, yes, that everything code, the universal code article. Now we've got our own place on the platform now, so we can have chats and talk about stuff and share information there. So let's make sure we use that, and then we can build this community into something special, because it is something special. There's nowhere else these conversations are really happening, and where we can all talk with a bit of half knowledge, quarter knowledge, but think things through in a kind of safe space. I just love it. This is just brilliant.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Good to see you all, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone. See you soon.
Care. So you obviously like this video enough that you've got to the end. That's quite a big task. But listen, do me a favor, hit the like and subscribe button, and also check out what video's next, because I think you'll love it. But if you want even more, and when I'm talking more, I'm talking about member-generated ideas, incredible alpha, research, everything there to help you in your journey, just head to realvision.com/join for the best financial intelligence out there and the pure alpha that's within the platform.